Tonight, we're starting with 24-hour News 8's Tom Hillen and a ruling that appears to be a huge concern for schools and parents. A judge has ruled sex offenders do not have to stay away from schools. So, Tom, explain to us what's happening.
Well, Marley, we are just learning about this today, and basically a judge has said that Michigan's law requiring sex offenders to stay back at least 1,000 feet from schools is unconstitutional. The judge says the requirement is too vague. The law doesn't provide enough specifics for sex offenders to follow it. He says the 1,000 feet requirement doesn't spell out how that's measured, as in, is it as the crow flies? The judge says it is questions like that which make the law unconstitutional. The judge also struck down a mandate that requires sex offenders to provide new email addresses or instant messaging addresses to police. Now, this was all brought together by a lawsuit by the ACLU. Live in studio control, Tom Hillen, 24-hour News 8.
All right, thank you, Tom. And I'm now at the live desk, and we're speaking live to Michigan Senator Rick Jones, who says that he wants to address this issue and all the fallout from it as soon as possible. The senator is joining us live from his office in Lansing. Senator, thank you for your time tonight.
Good evening. Yes, the news was very shocking when we had this judicial ruling, and we're going to fix it. We are not going to allow pedophiles to be around schools, period.
Well, first of all, what is your issue with this ruling specifically, and how are you working to fix it and make changes so it's not only constitutional, but also one that protects children?
Well, we're going to define very carefully how far you have to be away from the school. We're going to write it exactly the way the judge wants, so it's going to be very clear. And we're going to make sure that all of the offenders know exactly what they can and cannot do. We're also going to have to define loitering very clearly, and we may have to allow some judicial discretion in some cases, not pedophiles, but perhaps a nonviolent sex offender might be allowed to go see their children at school temporarily.
And when you say define loitering more specifically, explain a little bit about that. I guess there's a gray area where these sex offenders may be around a school, but not necessarily considered loitering. Go into that just a little bit for us.
Well, certainly, in my mind, as a former police officer, if you're hanging around looking at the playground or at the school, you're loitering. If it's someplace you're not supposed to be, you don't need to be there. And every pedophile knows that. It should be very clear, and we're going to make sure it's clear.
As of right now, is there any immediate impact from this judge's ruling, or are you still in that tweaking and fact-finding phase of this whole issue?
Well, the immediate impact is there will be some sex offenders that test the law now because they've seen this in the media. The different newspapers have covered it. So we want to make sure they know. If you're an offender, the police officers are watching you, they're watching the playgrounds in the schools, and it will not be tolerated.
And so that is pretty much your hardcore message for these sex offenders.
Absolutely. Anybody, especially who is a child molester, has no business being around a school. They know it. They know, in my opinion, they know they have a disease that's not curable. So they need to stay away.
Senator Rick Jones, from your office in Lansing, we appreciate the time tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Have a great night.
All right.